and I found a passion for it. And I'm young enough to, I'm like, if I just put 150% effort for the next 3.5 to 4 years, I think I can do something special. I'm saying this without any resemblance of a rugby resume. And my brother's just like, he says, look, man, when you said you were going to play junior college football, you came back with 2 rings. When you said you were going to find a way to give your daughter the best life possible, you figured that out.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it.
So when people are like, oh, yeah, rugby's a game of perseverance, you crossover athletes wouldn't understand, we're like, bro, what? Because we're seeing a lot of people in this game. It's like, yeah, you've grown up middle class your whole life, 2-parent household. Life looks great for you over there, and you're playing rugby for the love of the game because you got a master's degree and you have a good job. All right, that's cool. What about the guy who works the graveyard shift, plays rugby because he loves the game too, but maybe he can't drive all the way to LA because he's got to figure some things out, financially at home? Or what about the guy who's the steel mill worker, or the guy who works with the forestry? Like, I have friends who play rugby for Beaumont Rugby Club, and that was the difference, right, of being exposed to Beaumont Rugby Club, Riverside Rugby Club, versus you start driving more towards the coast, everything starts to look a little bit better. Teams have a little bit more resources, and there's this big, huge emphasis on like the rugby socials, things like that. When it's like, no, you go talk to my guys at Beaumont and Riverside. I've seen people try to attack their character, simply because they're like, oh, Riverside Rugby Club, they're Division III club. Okay, and that's where my first rugby practice was. Like, EC and his family and the Tongan community in Riverside, they brought me into rugby, during that COVID. They taught me certain things. They're like, yeah, when you hit somebody, this is how you hit them. Like, when people see my physicality, it came from that little rugby pitch inside of a cage at Reed Park in Riverside, California. Because them Tongans, they're not going to play with you. Those boys are not going to play with you at all. They don't be like, all right, before they teach you anything, they gonna see, okay, can he actually take a hit or not? Can he get hit in the mouth and get back up? And there was a time in practice where one of them tried me, and I said, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. And he's like, okay, all right, respect. And I was like, all right, cool. And to this day, that's why I've been able to give back to Empire Youth Rugby and all the things that they're doing there. And, starting to give back more in that regard, because these are all guys who work construction. Like, people would get mad because, like, oh, how come they're only at practice one day a week? Well, it's good. They have families to feed. They're working class people. They can't just call off. They call off work one day, their family's not going to eat. And they still make the commitment to come out and play rugby. And then on top of that, when you realize, wait a minute, there's less emphasis for the adult club because most of these men are turning around doing double shifts, helping out the youth club to give them a better chance. And shout out to Norco College Rugby because they come get our kids. So when I start to see that, and then now I'm in Los Angeles, and everybody's like, "Oh, you wanna prove yourself to be a baller? You got to go to Giltini's academy." And I said, "Who the hell are the Giltinis? What kind of name is that?" And watching some guys, mind you, Mafi, very humble guy, love him to death. He actually was like, "Yeah, you want to play here? This is what you got to do." Get through sevens, we get through rugby league. I'm liking it, right? We get to slow, tri-tip sevens. We go up there, and Everybody's talking about this Irene IE guy. I'm like, who is this guy? Because I don't remember his face from the Belmont time, right? That was like 8 months prior. I'm like, all right, cool. They're like, but now I'm like, okay, I want to get in this Giltini's Academy thing. Like, I want to, how do you get there? And everybody's like looking at me like, bro, relax. You've only played a summer of rugby. Just hold your horses, bro. Like, we understand you came from football, but like, it ain't that easy. I'm like, and I'm just like, I'm starting to get frustrated because I'm like, I'm looking at people. I'm like, yo, nobody came here and said it was easy. I literally came here and just said I'm willing to do the work. That's it. Just point me to where the work is, and I'll go figure it out. Because I have my circle and team of people who are like, okay, when Jayson says he wants to do something, when Jayson says he's going to do something, he does it. He finds a way to do it. That's why the relationships I have with people, like I have a lot of good relationships now, even later in life, because they're like, you know what, like, I can depend on your word. So I see this guy, Irene IE, playing for who? EPA Razorbacks. So I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's in his 40s, and I'm learning the term rugby whore and all these other things, right? And he's helping out EPA because EPA has low numbers. I go over to Tiger. I'm like, hey, you need some help? Like, let me throw on a jersey. He's like, yeah, for sure. We get to slow. I see Coach Renz. I'm like, hey, everybody's saying, he's coaching me during the game. He's coaching me after the game. He's teaching me how to like work in space and all these other things. And then I asked him, I said, hey, everybody's talking about this Giltini Academy thing. I've been walking around. Everybody's saying you're the guy to talk to. I don't know why, but, and he gives me this look at initially of like, is this guy just going to like ask for an opportunity? Is he going to ask for like a handout? There's other things. I said, no, like just, where's the tryout? Like where do I show up? I was like, what is, and then I'm asking him questions like, what can I do? What can I do to prepare for an opportunity? Not even an opportunity. What can I do to prepare for one? So then when I do get one, like knowing my work ethic, I'm going to get one. I just need to be prepared for it. And he looks at me and he's like, huh, okay. He says, show up to this camp here in Oakland, and he's like, you impressed there? I think you'll be in good hands. I said, well, how can I prepare? And there was a person, he says, I remember he was doing skill stuff in LA, in Southern California. Mind you, this whole time I'm not knowing he's the skill coach for the Giltinis, right? He comes to Riverside Rugby Club. I found out because I'm stalking him on Instagram. I am stalking. I'm watching his every move. He says he's going to come to Riverside. He even brings Kenny with him. Kenny, I cannot pronounce his last name. He's Fijian, plays for Houston Sabercats. Belmont guy. Kenny's there. Kenny looks at me. He says, "Oh, hey, what's up, Jay?" I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" Because we've had a couple of conversations. Coach Rand. He's teaching us skills and all these other things, right? And it's Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, and he's kind of. I could tell Coach Rand was upset because like only like 6 of us showed up to this thing, right? I'm still not. I'm having more of a grasp of who he is, as far as like All Blacks and the 7 stuff. I get to this camp in Oakland. I call my brother. I said, "Hey man, I'm about to drive 6.5 hours up there. Can I sleep on your couch?" He's like, he's like, "For what?" I said, "Look, there's this rugby thing I've been doing. Um, I want to give it a shot." And he's like, "Look, bro, I know when you set your mind to something, I support you. I just got to know why. Like, where is this coming from?" And I was just like, "I think I can do it. I think I can do it." And I found a passion for it. And I'm young enough to. I'm like, if I just put 150% effort for the next 3.5 to 4 years, I think I can do something special. I'm saying this without any resemblance of a rugby resume. And my brother's just like, he says, look, man, when you said you were going to play junior college football, you came back with 2 rings. When you said you were going to find a way to give your daughter the best life possible, you figured that out. they were like, all right, man, you can come up here. So I drive up there in the middle of the night, um, and my daughter was with her mother, and I drive up there to Oakland. I get there at like 3 in the morning, sleep on his couch. I brought my shout out to HDV Rugby visuals. Um, I don't know if people know, but my boy Howard Lance knows him very well too. He's in the car with me because he was staying at the Eagle Rock Rugby House at the time, and we became friends through rugby league. But he's originally from Santa Rosa. I said, "Hey man, I'm going to this camp. You guys want to go?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I got Howard and Donnie Duncan, who's now playing rugby in Louisiana. He comes back and forth. Um, he was on the documentary with me as well. We drive up there, and all three of us are like, "All right, let's try to do something special." We get to the camp, and you know the Life West and all those guys come in. That's when I get introduced to them because now we're in their house. I see EPA guys. I see guys who I've played against in league. I'm like, okay. And then I see this one humongous human being, Joe Cacao. I don't know if I pronounced his last name properly, but he's Fijian and he's played for Coach Age and Life West and the Santa Rosa guys as well. I think he's into like strongman lifting now. I see this massive human being of a man, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. I'm like, okay, that's the guy who I got to tackle if I want to make it in this thing. Because everybody's looking at him like they're trying to stay away from him. They're trying to make sure they're not in the same group. I'm just like, nah. If there's a scrimmage here today, we need to get him. Because I'm somewhat of a big guy, but that guy made me look. That guy made me look because I'm only 5'10", right? So you know, I'm girthy, but this guy is also 6'3" and huge. So I'm like, okay. And I see Coach Age. He comes in with 20 of his California Grizzlies guys. So I'm seeing this already and knowing from my football background, I'm like, oh, okay, so those are the guys who already have connections. Got it. There's maybe 4 guys over there who probably have a for sure shot, and they haven't even touched the ball, while the rest of them have an opportunity of just being on the team. And then everybody else here has got to compete with that on top of catching the coach's attention. Like, I'm evaluating all this stuff. And we get in line, and there's 3 people. It's Dave Clancy, who's now coaching at Chicago Hounds. You have Kevin Battle. Everybody knows him because of his work with the MLR Academies and Santa Barbara Academy, everything he's done with urban rugby and inner city youth rugby. And I see one more person, and it's Areni IE. And he's looking at everybody down the line. And I'm like, holy snap, he's on the staff. I was like, how come he never told me? And then he looks at me in the line, and then he winks at me. And I'm just like, yo, I'm like, what? There's no way. And then all of the drill, and they're like, all right, we're going to do a series of drills. We're going to get your 40-meter dash, then you're going to do some drills, and then we'll have a scrimmage at the end. So, all right, do the 40-meter step. I'm like, all right, I can do the combine stuff, right? Come on, football, do all that stuff. Numbers look really good. My brother and his girlfriend are watching me in the stands. He's like, all right. My brother's super nervous because he's just like, man, dude, like, little brother, I love you, but I just don't want you to, like, come out here and embarrass yourself, and then now I got to coddle you at home. And I'm just like, nah, man, like, I got this. And we get to the drills. Every single drill that we did was one of the drills that Areni IE trained me in that park. Mind you, you go to Reed Park, like, that thing has holes in it, like, 8 months out of the year. Like, gopher holes. And we're doing this with no shoes on, and I'm, like, sweating, and I'm just like, man, like, this is tough. And he's like, no, man, you got this, you got this. And realizing that, like, wow, this guy was prepared me for this, and he didn't tell me he was a coach on the team. He didn't tell. In that moment, I was like, it was just Mr. Miyagi and Karate Kid. I'm like, you know what? I think in his eyes, he just saw a guy who wanted it, and it was like, oh wow, here's a guy who actually is finding love for the game and passion for the game, who just wants to put in the work. Okay. And I don't think he's out. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't think he's seen a lot of that. Yeah, he's got, like, knowing him now, I understand there's a lot of people in his face because of his resume. everybody's trying to get a cameo in a photo. And hey, hey, can you come do a rugby clinic here? Can you do rugby clinic there? Those type of things that come with having that type of name. But I think when he saw, I was like, look, I don't know you, you don't know me. You can let's get to know each other, but there's something I'm trying to do right now, and I don't need anybody's name to get there. I don't need anybody being a reference for me. I want to just put in the work, but I do know I need to learn these skills from somewhere, and I hear that you're one of the best. So,
And I think in that he did you such a favor,
oh,
frankly, I mean, because he didn't bring up his name, he didn't bring up the coaching, because as you know, and I say, actually, I don't think you would, but there are people that once they hear that, oh, well, the guy who trained me is also part of the coaching staff. I can take it easy. I can put off the brakes a little. Oh, he's got me. I'm good.
mm-hmm. And that's exactly um like what it was. Right? Was I think he saw a guy who was like, no, 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 this guy's gonna put in his own labor, and I thank him to this day because in everything I do in rugby, I always send to him because for people to see me as a rugby player now, even in Costa Rica, some of the kids in Costa Rica who I've talked to and mentored, they some of them put me on a pedestal, and I say, hey, no, 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 no. 5 years ago, I didn't know how to pass a rugby ball, kid. And the same humility that was inviting me to the game and taught me the game, I want to pass that down. Yeah, the academies, yeah, all the other stuff, like, yeah, that's cool. But it's what people like Areni IE. It's people like Areni IE who grow the game. So I get to the Oakland camp. I I'm nervous. I think I did well, but I think I didn't do good enough. I did great in the drills, did great in the exercises. Then when it came to the scrimmage, I had one nice line break for like 40 meters, and I was like the moment I broke the line, I said, like I fended off one guy, broke the line. Mind you, I see Big Joe coming, and I said, boy, you better just run. You run, put your head down. Don't worry about scouts. Don't worry about nothing else. Boy, you just 5 meters at a time. That's what one of my sergeants told me in the military. He said, son, you want to stay alive? You focus on 5 meters at a time. And I said, all right, let's go. And I'm not comfortable in my pass, but I see the fullback. I make it all the way to the fullback. That's how big this line break is. And we're in our own 22. And I get to like midfield. And I'm just like, okay, I see a fullback. I see one guy on my left. And he's calling for the ball. But he's a little far away. Now, and today, for me, today, oh, that's a regular here. But at that time, I'm like, damn, like I've worked on this so many times. I'm in my room with a rugby ball. Emiliano told me to get 100 passes in each side a day. So that's what I did. So I was doing all this in my room. And I said, if this ball does not get to him, it's over. And for people who played rugby their whole life, they're like, man, it's not that serious, bro. It's not that deep. For me, it was. I got to make it. This is the part in the Invincible movie where he goes to the Eagles tryout. And he's like, hey, did you play college ball? And he says, no, I didn't play college ball. I pass it, get the offload, we get the try. And we play for I play good defense for the next 10 minutes. Boom, they call it. They're like, all right, guys, thanks for coming out. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm talking to Howard. Howard's like, hey, man, we got to talk to Age. I said, who's that? He's like, yeah, that's the coach at Life West. I'm like, bro, I can't drive all the way up here to play week in and week out. He says, nah, man. He's got this travel team. He's got this select side team called the California Grizzlies. I'm like, what the hell is select side rugby? I was like, I thought it was just club and academy. He says, nah, man, there's select teams, things like that. I was like, well, what are the select teams? He says, well, and then there's touring sides too. And I'm just like, so I haven't even found out about the Roots and the Harpooners of the world yet. I haven't even found out about them yet. I'm just like, okay, so he coaches two teams? He says, no, 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 no. They're the same team. They just switch jerseys from time to time. I'm just like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, he coaches Life West. Then he's got his California Grizzlies, which is made up mostly of Life West guys, but he allows other guys to come in that team. I'm like, okay, got it. We go talk to Age. Shout out to Coach Age. I love you, big dog. And he knew Howard already. And he's like, hey, we want to come play for the Grizzlies and try out. I didn't want to come off as too demanding because I'm I'm a very ambitious individual, and like you just see my face when I'm really focused on something. You're just like, oh my goodness, like the guy has intentions. So I come over to Coach H. I'm like, hey, Coach, is there a tryout for your team? I'd love to try out. And he's talking to Howard for a minute, so I give him his privacy. And he's basically recruiting Howard. He's like, hey man, come play for me this now. I know you're with the Santa Rosa guys. And I'm like, man, like this coach doesn't know me. Um, so I'm kind of like got my, scratching the back of my head. I'm like, hey Howard, do you think you can introduce me and all this other stuff? And but I see Coach H was in a hurry. So the moment they get done with their conversation, Coach H turns around. I immediately grab his attention. I'm like, excuse me, Coach. And he says, yeah. And it was right before he turned the corner to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, I would have lost that moment forever. Like I chased him down before he leaves to the parking lot, and he kind of turned around with this annoyed look on his face. And I'm just like, sir, I'd like to try out for your team. And he says, okay, well, we have a scrimmage with ourselves, with our A side and B side. He says, he's like, can you be here Saturday? And I was like, yes, sir, I'll be there. And he says, all right. He's like, yeah, you can come. And it wasn't like a, oh yeah, I'll see you there. It was like, I'm pretty sure he's one of those coaches who have heard a lot from people of how much they want it, and then they just, okay, that guy didn't show up today.
Never showed, didn't, oh, I had to work, which is a legitimate excuse, but
Yeah. So
that's your opportunity.
yeah, exactly. So I understand. Like I'm looking him in his eye, and I'm like, yeah, I know I know you've gone through this so many times with other people to where I understand that the fact that you simply said you can come, you gave me the benefit of the doubt, but I also understand from a coach's perspective of, yeah, I've heard this times before. Yeah, all right, cool. And he says, where are you located? I said, Southern California. He's like, oh, you're in LA? I said, no, I'm an hour and a half east of LA. He says, where are you from? He's like, where are you living at? I said, San Bernardino, Highland. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, man, that's far. Because one of the coaches on his staff was from Bakersfield. So he's like, wait, kid, you driving from that far? I said, yeah. He's like, and then they're kind of looking at each other like, wow, like, yeah, he might not actually drive up here. Because you're asking me to go up there the next Saturday. So we drive down. I'm talking to Howard and Donnie in the car, and they're like asking me. They're like, "Hey, man, like, they were talking about something. Music's playing, and we're just having a good old road trip. And I'm just I'm dazing off, and I'm just like, everybody's like, "You okay?" I said, "Hey, man, I'm doing this thing. I'm coming back here next Saturday. Um, you, are you guys coming?" And they're like, "Whoa, bro! Like, where'd this come from?" I'm just like, "I'm doing it, bro. This is my chance." And mind you, we were already practicing preseason for Eagle Rock. So I was still going to those practices. I was still driving to LA twice a week to go to those practices. I said, you know what? It's preseason. Eagle Rock doesn't have any games. The games that the Grizzlies have align with the preseason because he's got to go coach his Life West team. So I said, it's perfect. It's just, it's a lot of driving, dude. And we got to figure out a way to keep our job in this process too. Which means when you drive up here, you can't call off. You need to drive back home right after the game. Like, is that something like my mom's like, son, you need sleep. Like, what are you gonna do? My brother's like, my brother's looking at me, he's just like, dude, you're nuts, but hey, my door's always open. Like, I got you, bro. He's like, you need help with gas money, like, I got you. And I I remember working two security jobs at the time, and the manager of the warehouse where I was working security for the swing shift. So I would get off there and then I would drive to LA through Eagle Rock rugby practice, get off there, and then go to my second job. I remember the manager told me something. He said, because I was telling him about everything in rugby. He says, man, you look tired. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. And he says, and I'm just telling him about how much I love rugby. And to this day, I haven't seen him again since I left that job. But he looked at me and says, man, look, watching you come in here every day, still showing up to work, but then hearing all the things that you're out there pursuing, he says, hey man, he puts his finger right in my chest. He says, I don't care what anybody says. He's like, I don't even know you that well. Don't you ever stop. He says, you know what? And when you make it, send me the live stream. And I'm like, man, like there's a complete stranger who's saying this. Training at Eagle Rock. Some guys are like, hey, like, where you going this weekend? I'm like, yeah, I got to drive up to this Grizzly scheme. I'm, I'm hearing from guys at Eagle Rock, and some of those guys don't play there anymore, but and just other people in the rugby community in general. Like, it wasn't just Eagle Rock guys, right? Like, I'm hearing from people that are like, bro, these select sides, they're very political. They don't really offer. They always talk about they're a pathway to the next level, but they already have the three guys who they want to get out. They just need a team around them, obviously, because you can't just do it by yourself. And they're like, man, it's not really a real opportunity. And I'm just like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm still gonna do it anyway. They're like, why? I was like, why not? Why not take that bet on yourself? So I drive up there. I impress during the scrimmage. Coach H says, all right. Like, first of all, I was there before everybody else, and I helped Coach H unload his equipment. He looks at me. He's like, when he pulls in, I see him, through his glass window. I get out the car. I'm like, hey, coach, you need help unloading anything? He looks at me. He says, like, he has this, like, baffled look on his face, like, this dude actually drove up here. I'm like, yeah, bright and early, too. Like, boots in hand, everything. And I'm just like, let's do this. And he says, where did you drive from again? I said, San Bernardino. He's like, the coach from Bakersfield's like, whoa. And he says, all right. He throws me out there at tight head prop. I don't know how to scrum at all. And he says, don't worry. We'll see where you are now, and then we'll just work on it from there. I'm not knowing that I'm playing alongside some future MLR guys here. Like the hooker I'm playing next to, Alex Glover. One of the guys I played against the week later against in Seattle Rugby Club, Kellen Gordon, Seattle Seawolves. Like, I'm not knowing that, oh no, these guys are some dogs, but this is what they do in the off season. They're still getting their minutes in. I'm like, okay. So, but I'm not knowing this until the conversations after the game. And when a guy's like, hey, what's your Instagram? So now I'm understanding, okay, so this is what it takes. Because these guys are all, okay, Alex, he's from the Bay. Okay, Kellen, he lives in Seattle. All right, got it. Yeah, they're local guys. But I'm like, okay, clearly all these people are in this environment. Okay, then this is where I need to be. This is where the work is. Coach H looks at me and says, I'll see you next week. The next 4 games, I go up there week after week. I drive up there. It got to one point to where he actually grilled some guys who showed up late because he's like, wait a minute, I got a guy driving 6.5, 7 hours, and he's here before me. He's here before they even set up the field. And I got to get some of you guys who live 15 minutes away to show up on time. So then there were some guys who were kind of looking at me, wow, this guy's a try hard. I'm like, dude, I don't know what everybody's deal is. Everybody's looking at me like I'm this, Rudy guy, like the movie Rudy. And like, it's pissing some people off. But I'm like, look, if my work ethic pisses you off, then all right, well then fine. You're just gonna have to deal with it then. Because clearly, like, it's gotten results. And I'm the type of person where even if it doesn't get me immediate results, I'm willing to put in that time and let it slow cook. That's why my mom's oxtails are so good. Y'all want this microwavable success. No, you gotta season the meat. First of all, you gotta clean the meat, then you gotta season it. Like, success is like a good barbecue. If you want it to taste good, you're gonna need to take some time. And Coach H tells me after the last game, we played Life University in San Francisco. He says, hey man, I just want you to know, keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? I'm like, thanks. But I'm like, But I'm kind of getting discouraged here. I'm like, all right, so we're gonna play this Grizzlies season, and mind you, I'm getting better each week. I'm learning things. Alex Glover is teaching me how to scrum mid scrum. Like Kellen Gordon across from me, who just buried me 2 scrums ago, is also teaching me how to scrum against him because guys are seeing that I'm showing up. They're like, you know what? Even though I'm competing against you, I respect your hustle. So Kellen is like looking at me. He's like, yeah, I'm a scrum my hardest against you right now, but I'm also going to teach you where to place your head, bro. I'm also going to teach you how low you should be. And then he's talking to Alex across from each other. Yeah, hey, help him out. Put his foot there. All right, cool. To where even the other pack is like, hold up, let him get set up real quick. All right, we're good. Now, mind you, when we're in the scrum, okay, we're competing. But the fact that that little 5 seconds right there of them just caring, that is what grows the game.
That quick adjust that they see you putting in the work. They're like, all right, if he doesn't belong, he'll weed himself out. But
Mhm.
while he's here, let's give him a little bit to work with because I think when you get to a high enough level, that's really what it's about. It's like, well, if he does make this team and he's not scrumming right, well, that doesn't help us. So let's help him while he's here. He might not come back. He's driving 7 hours. He might not be able to come back eventually, but while he's here, let's see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the, and it's those moments that I remember along the journey. And long story short, I get a call. Coach Age tells me, he says, hey, man, that's the last game of the preseason. We just want to say, we appreciate your commitment. And if you just like, one of the most important things that he told me was, it's not about what you can take from the club. It's what you can give to the club. He says, and you've given us everything. He says, if you have that same mindset, you'll be successful wherever you go. And I said, okay, thank you, sir. And I still talk to him to this day. We have a great relationship. He's always checking up on me like I'm one of his kids. And I'm not knowing that he was in cahoots with Areni IE, that like they knew each other. Also, just a little smidge of information. When the Giltinis were in town, there was a man of the name of Charlie Abel, who was a prop. He's a prop over there in Chicago right now. He had this thing called Scrum School. I don't know if it was a side hustle or not, but he was like, look, I'm teaching guys how to scrum for $50. So in between Grizzlies games, Coach Age would look at me and say, hey, your scrum's getting a lot better. Yeah, because I was going to those scrum school sessions. Mind you, that stuff was broadcasted to almost every club in the Los Angeles area. The youth showed up. I was maybe one of 4 adults who showed up. And there were some teenagers who were looking at me like, oh, this guy's huge, but he's a grown man out here learning how to scrum. I said, yeah, I'm not too prideful to be like, oh, I already know what I'm doing. Like I got a little bit of help, so now I know I got it all down already. No, you got to humble yourself. And also, what was going on at the same time was this documentary on World Rugby. You probably, I'm not sure if you have, but that Cross the Line Rugby documentary with Alex Corbacero. I was on season 1 with Eagle Rock Rugby Club. And all of that was simultaneously going on while going up every weekend with the Grizzlies and doing this school. So some people saw me and they're like, oh, you're the guy from you made it to the Giltini Academy because you were just on the documentary and you got lucky one day. No. They didn't see all that background stuff. And I get a call at work from Kevin Battle. And I'm actually checking my voicemail. I actually missed this call a week prior. I get a call, or I look at the voicemail and I'm like, hey, this is Kevin Battle. I'd like to talk to you about your future with the Giltini. Before that voicemail even finished, I called his number. And I'm just like, oh my God, I missed this call. But it was because like I was going back and forth from 2 jobs. So I'm like, all right. I'm like, hi. Mr. Kevin Battle, and he's like, oh hey, is this Jason? I'm like, yes, this time. I'm like, I'm sorry, Mr. Call. It's just I've just been busy with work. I was like, I want to talk about the Giltinis. I was like, is that offer still on the table? And he says, yeah. He's like, yeah, man, like relax.
Calm down.
And he says, yeah, I'd like to talk to you about your future with the Giltinis Academy. He's like, we'd like to give you a shot. I said, yes, sir, thank you so much, this and that. So after we get through that break in the ice, he says, well, tell me about how your rugby experience. How much rugby experience do you have? He's like, I saw your footage from the California Grizzlies and we're really impressed. He says, so how much so when he asked me how much experience do I have, he's impressed that I'm doing this on a select side team. And so he's like, okay, so what club have you played for? How many years have you played there? And I'm just like, coach, so that camp, that ID camp in Oakland, and those 4 games with the Grizzlies, as far as rugby union goes, that's it, sir. And there was a long pause. Because I'm pretty sure he's thinking, okay, yeah, this guy's impressive and all, but do I really want to risk my job? Like, I understand the weight of like, okay, but as a player, I understood that too. I was like, look, if you out here trying to do all this stuff, you need to you need to perform at such a level to where that when people vouch for you, their names don't get thrown in the mud. Like, so when Age hosts another California Grizzlies season, and now he has a full roster of guys who want to show up. Yeah. The one guy who did show up, look at where he's at now. The one guy who always showed up on time. The one guy who wasn't local, who drove up here. Areni IE, when he goes on through his journey and he's mentoring other people and he's talking to a kid and he's like, yeah, like there's just some people who just want it. Like, look at him. Like, I wanted to be an example of, no, you can vouch for me. Like I wanted to give that security in my work ethic of like, yeah, I wanted somebody to look at me and say, you know what, if I vouch for that guy, like, he's not going to make me look stupid for vouching for him. So I'm talking to Coach Kevin Battle. I'm just like, yeah, like I give it everything I have. I've been going to scrum school. I've been working with some of your players on your senior team, with scrum school. And I'm selling myself. But then at the same time, I'm like, but you also see the tape. Ball don't lie. You see me out here out scrumming dudes. You see me out here, getting positive tackles and good carries. And he's like, okay. He's like, all right, can you show up to practice tomorrow? I said, at what time? And he said, you gotta be here at 8 a.m. I said, yes, sir, I'll be there. They're like, yeah, we'll have our own academy practice throughout the season, but for right now, we have some guys training with the first team. Guys who just come in and get their training. So I said, okay. He says, it's it's mandatory, but we understand logistically not everybody can get there because they have work commitments and things like that. And I said, sir, I'll be there. Because I'm like, no, I'm gonna outwork all those guys you have locally who I know ain't gonna come. Who the guys who I know who are gonna come when it's mandatory, when it's a night practice, after you get all your ducks in a row, as or logistically. But all the guys who are like, who can use that excuse of, yeah, I got work, I'm not gonna go there, even though it's 20 minutes. Nope, that's where I'm gonna do it right there. I get there at 6. Mind you, LA traffic and early in the morning. I got coffee, got my boots, got my heavy metal music. I'm listening to Eric Thomas motivational speeches. Anything that can just give me that energy. We're training with the Giltinis. To Justice Uru, Prop with Legion. Like, all these guys were in the same room, and I did my, and I'm reading books and I'm studying Kobe Bryant of his Mamba mentality, which I've always done that, but I'm like, okay, Kobe Bryant also, like, he saw the 52 guys who were drafted in front of him, and he said, okay, I'm gonna hunt down all of you. So when I walked into that training session, I said, okay, so you played for Glasgow Warriors and you played for Team Canada. Okay, I'm looking at Adam Ashley Cooper like, all right, you're a legend. Like, I'm just gonna be a sponge. Like, teach me everything. I'm looking at Angus Cottrell like, okay, you're the captain. So like, all right, I'm gonna prove myself to you too. I see Ryan James in there. I'm like, oh, so you come through in clutch moments. All right, for sure. I want to see what that's looking like in rugby. And then I'm looking at and also looking at DeJustice. I'm like, it was happy to see someone who actually looked like me in the league. But then also, I'm looking at Charlie Abel, and I'm like, okay, you literally taught me. You, along with Alex Corbacero, have taught me how to scrum. Now I want to put it to use and see if I could beat you. Respectfully, right? And it wasn't like, oh my goodness, I'm just, very happy and humble to be here. Yes, I'm very happy and humble to be here. But okay, now we're gonna earn our place here. So I'm competing in practice. I'm pretty sure DJ, shout out to DJ, I love you, big bro. I'm pretty sure there were times where I was pissing him off in practice. Pretty sure there were times where I was pissing off guys on the Giltinis because they're like, yo, this guy is just nonstop. And I said, no, like, I've driven far for this. I've put in this time for this. And not only that, but whether you give me, I know I went into that like not expecting a call up at all. I was just like, no, 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 no. When the rest of the Giltinis Academy guys show up, I want to be one of the best ones. I want to be an example. And then I want to earn the respect of the first team. So then when it comes to the conversation of who are we going to call up, my name gets called up in that conversation first. Because they're like, you know what? We've seen him work. We've seen him do us. And I think, unfortunately, I see this a lot in rugby where a guy's been working for so long. And then he gets to a point where it's like, he gets to another level, actually. But he's like, oh my goodness, I have to start from scratch again because these are new people who you have to prove your work ethic to. You don't have to prove your work ethic to the people who've already seen your work, but now you're in a new room with new people. And I feel like some guys, they give up right when they get to that point because they feel like it's repetitive over and over and over again. They're like, how many times do I need to keep proving myself? And I'm just like, well, being a crossover in the sport, I'm looking around and I'm just like, well, it seems to me that if you are from the American continent, you're going to have to do that anyway. Okay. Now, I also looked at it as from a perspective of like, okay, maybe somebody sees the work that I'm doing and they see, okay, this guy just does not quit. And then he doesn't take no for an answer. And then look at every opportunity he's been given. What has he done with it? He's made the most of it, right? Okay. And sometimes maybe the way they see your work ethic and they see your progress, maybe that forces them to say, hey, maybe we should go back to the drawing board because there's got to be other guys like this who are falling through the cracks and we need to fix something.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.